Hello, I'm Alma Schneider. I'm a licensed clinical social worker and the proud mother of 4 children, one of whom has Prader-Willi syndrome.
And I am Iris Miller. I'm a certified rehabilitation counselor and the proud mother of 2 children, one of whom has quadriplegic cerebral palsy and is nonverbal.
In this podcast, we discuss the uncensored truth about raising children with disabilities.
Prepare to laugh, cry, and hopefully learn something new.
This is 2 Moms, No Fluff.
Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us for another episode of 2 Moms, No Fluff, the podcast in which we discuss the uncensored truth about raising our children with disabilities. If you're a parent or an ally to parents of children with disabilities, we are so appreciative to have you here. Today, we have a special guest, and I'll let my partner, Alma Schneider, introduce our guest.
Thank you very much, Iris. Welcome, everyone. I'm very excited to introduce you to Joanne De Simone because I've known Joanne for a very long time. She's actually been part of our disability community in New Jersey, and we've had social outings, we've had professional teamwork together, but today we are having Joanne come to talk about her new book, Fall and Recovery. So Joanne, welcome. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
And I guess the first question is, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I'm a mom to 2 adult men with disabilities.
Mhm.
And I currently work as a special education parent advocate. Prior to that, I was a special educator. And prior to that, I was a professional modern dancer. So many lives, many lives.
Wow. And we come to see you here today with a book. And can you tell us a little bit about what was the impetus to write this book? How did it come to be?
Sure. The book is Fall and Recovery, Raising Children with Disabilities Through Lessons Learned in Dance. So actually, I had given a talk to a group of college students who were studying to be special educators. So they wanted to hear about the parent experience. And after that, they asked me to write a book. And I thought, yeah, sure. In my spare time, I'll write a book.
And I can add that I know that Joanne is a very busy person.
So I didn't really give it too much thought, but after a few more presentations, I thought, okay, yeah, maybe special educators really need to hear the parent side of the story better. So I started writing without knowing anything about how to write. I just made a timeline and started writing about all the things that I couldn't shake from my memory.
Mhm.
And then I, found a local writing group. And then I started writing essays to really hone my abilities. And I wrote an essay for Brainchild magazine called Bury My Son Before I Die. And, to me, talking about the fact that I had a son who, very well might die and doing everything I could to keep him alive and being terrified about what happens to him if I die first seemed like a really natural conversation that I had had with many parents and my family. But all of these parents were writing to me, and it was obvious that that was something they'd been thinking about but couldn't share.
Mhm.
And one mom said, for the first time ever, I don't feel like a monster for having all of these thoughts.
Mhm.
And it completely changed the goal for me in getting this book put together. I decided, oh, that's what I have to focus on. I have to talk about the conflicts, and I have to do it in a really uncensored way.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Wow. Joanne, if you don't mind, maybe taking a step backwards and sharing a little bit more about your children and your family, and so people have some background to where this book kind of originated from.
Sure. So Benjamin, who is my oldest, he's now 25. He was born with a rare brain malformation called lissencephaly, which literally means smooth brain. So he just doesn't have all the convolutions that you normally see when you think of the picture of a brain. He has spastic quad cerebral palsy. He has a severe seizure disorder that's still uncontrolled. Yeah, he's total care. He has a feeding tube. He's vocal but nonverbal, is how I always like to tell people. He- um, and my son Sebastian is on the autism spectrum. He is verbal. He struggled more with the academic side of things. So with Ben, it was a struggle with the medical, and then with Sebastian, it was a struggle with all of the academic and the education system.
Mhm.
So yeah,
Covered
I'm
all
try to
bases.
show those. Yeah, I covered it all.
Yeah, you covered it all.
I covered it
Yeah.
all. And you know, the assumption was, oh, you're a special educator. You got this. These
Mhm.
kids are in good hands. But when I went to my first IFSP meeting when Ben was, 4 months old,
And what is that?
and
I'm sorry for our listeners.
sure, it's like an individualized family service plan. So that's the early intervention system.
Mhm.
When I sat on the parents' side of the table for the first time, it hit me really quickly that I didn't get the parents that I was working with. I
Mhm.
mean, I felt so humbled. I
Mhm.
realized very quickly, like, oh, okay. And the education that I have is useful because I know the law. I have
Mhm.
friends in all aspects of, the provider community if I need help, but it still didn't teach me everything I needed to know to be a parent and live with the emotional, catastrophe that was going on inside my head and my heart.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was why when I was working on the book, I started writing about dance and started to flesh that out and realized that all these lessons that I had learned as a dancer were life lessons that I could use to sort of flip the script on how I viewed conflict and how to approach it.
So creative. This just sounds, I am so excited to read this. I've read, excerpts. I read some of your essays, and I'm really excited to read this because I love when we can put, our creative selves, a separate creative self,
Mm.
into our lives as parents of kids with disabilities, and how we can really use that to not just survive but to thrive, to see things in a different way. And can you give us a little taste? I'm just curious of an example of something in the book that is dance related that has to do with dealing with
Sure.
children with disabilities.
Sure. So I talk about my dance teacher had this lesson where he would say, live in the movement.
Hmm.
And he would glide his hands across the air in front of him. And he would say, imagine you're like in a pool of water and you're
Hmm.
just feeling the surface. And, this was his way of telling us, to focus on the movement that you're in this moment. Don't worry about the thing after that and the thing after that,
Hmm.
because if you're attending to what's ahead, you can't really appreciate what you're doing right now. And, of course, as a parent, this was the thing that therapists were telling me constantly, right? Like live in the moment.
Yes.
It's a one day at a time event, but it wasn't
Hmm.
something that I could really do because I was so worried about what's going to happen. What's going to happen to these kids? Where are they going to fit in? What's going to happen when we're not here?
Yeah.
So when I thought about that lesson again, I was like, yeah, that's me learning again how to live in the moment
Hmm.
and realizing what a kinesthetic learner I am, right? So just hearing something wasn't
Hmm.
enough, but absorbing it back into my body and how I learned as a mover, then it
Hmm.
clicked. Oh,
Yes. And that really demonstrates how people can throw so many potential solutions at us and ways to cope, but we really have to seek out things that resonate for us as individuals to feel better, to be able to progress. And that is a beautiful example of how you've been told something a million times but it clicked because of your interest. And we all have to think back, what makes me feel better, what makes me stay in the moment. And for me personally, it's music. Like I started
mm,
doing music again right after my son was born. And that
mm,
changed my perspective. It really did. It was, I call it my salvation. So I love
mm-hmm.
to hear that that was yours. You had it in you the whole time. Now
Yes.
you can share it with everyone.
Yes. Yes. Yeah,
And
it's incredible. It's
I
incredible.
also, I also love how you kind of demonstrate what we try to always share and tell parents of children with disability, that each child is so unique and they have their own unique way of learning and interacting with the world. And you are just demonstrating that so nicely as a neurotypical adult. And it's just lovely to hear how you do it. And I am dying to hear from you how with the family arrangement that you have with two children that have disabilities, how did you find the time to carve the time to write about your life?
I am a master scheduler. I always have been. I'm very, very organized. But yeah, when I wrote this book in about 7 months was the first draft, and then I worked on it on and off for 6 years. But I carved out the time. So when they were younger, they went to bed, at 8 o'clock. Then I would sit and, do my paperwork for work, and then I would sit and write. So I would work until like 11, 12 o'clock at night. And then on the weekends, I'd get up at 6 a.m. while everyone was asleep. And I would, have a few hours to do it then. So yeah, it was very deliberate scheduled time.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that that's what, I think that benefits everyone, to find, to make sure to carve out that time, and that it is not negotiable. Like that is
Yeah.
your time. Obviously emergencies happen, but we really have to, carve out that time to do what we really feel is important. And you stuck to it. It takes a lot of discipline. I'm sure you didn't want to get up at 6 in the morning a lot of those days, but you kept your eyes on the prize. This was something
Absolutely.
important. Yeah. Yeah. There is a way to do it, not 100% of the time, but most people, I really appreciate you sharing that information, because I think so many people want to partake in creative activities and have that kind of an outlet, even if it's just exercise, and just saying, like, I may have to sleep a little bit less, but maybe I'll go to bed a little bit early. It sounds like you were burning the candle on both ends,
Yeah.
going to bed at midnight. But but yeah, to really make an effort to carve out that time for things that are important to us, because our lives are continuing and we
Yeah.
want to be productive, and it takes a little extra work, as we all know, if you have other things going on at home. But you got it done. I'm really impressed, and I love your writing. I think you're an amazing writer,
Thank
and
you.
this sounds like a very important book for people to read, because with our podcast and all the work that Iris and I do with 1 in 6 support, helping families of children with disabilities, the number one thing is self-care, and to really create community so that we're less isolated. And you're doing both by writing when you feel it, this is an important thing for you creatively, but also you're going to be helping so many other people. So
I
thank
hope so. I mean, that's the goal, right? We realize
you.
how isolated we feel when we're dealing with all of these struggles. And I decided, like, yeah, that's the hill I'm standing on, right? I want
Mhm,
families to know they're not alone. I
mhm,
want them to know that they don't have to feel ashamed.
mhm,
They should validate their feelings. There's lots
mhm.
of things we have to deal with all the messages we get
Yes.
in our culture about what this life is and how we should view our children and how the
Mhm.
world views them. And that's a lot that we have to, get through.
Yes.
And it's a lot of conflict, a lot of bad feelings, but
Yes.
you can't just push it aside. I'm all about, being present in the moment is not exclusive to the good and happy times.
Mhm,
You have to sit in the tough stuff in
yes.
order to move through it. So, I want other parents to know that that's okay, and they should just give themselves the grace to spend the time they need to spend. It's
Mhm,
your timeline. It's not anybody else's timeline or journey.
mhm.
I want, providers and doctors to get a good sense of all the things we think and don't share.
Yes. Yes.
So yeah, I hope it lands. I
I'm
hope it
I'm
lands.
sure I'm sure it will. I can't wait. I can't wait to read it. And just by complete coincidence, I went to the Alvin Ailey exhibit yesterday at the Whitney
Oh,
Museum in New York, and I hope you get a chance to go if you haven't already. But it just,
trying.
just talking, just seeing the impact of dance, period, and of movement, and how it connects to so many other parts of ourselves and our history. It's a fascinating topic. And, I love that you've incorporated that or made that the focus of your book. So I'm really excited.
So one
Thank
thing
you.
I wanted to say is I don't know if you're familiar with the workshops that the New York City Ballet has for adults with disabilities. Yes, great. I think it's like a match. But in addition to that, I think that there are so many lessons in just this little conversation with you for younger parents. Now that your children are young adults, do you have any specific messages for parents who are younger, whose children are right at those stages of a new diagnosis, starting this journey?
Mm, there's so many things, right? So many
Yeah.
things. I mean, I think number one, you said it, right? It's so important to like find your community. I just think that if you don't have another parent in the room, whether
Mhm.
it's virtual or in front of you, that shorthand that comes with just being next to someone who knows,
Mhm.
not, it doesn't have to be all of the, specifics, but
Right.
just understands where you are. There's nothing like that. There's nothing like that. So I think it's really important, to be able to take a breath and reach out and connect.
Mhm.
Absolutely. And there's just so much that people go through, I think, in the beginning. And again, I just think you got to give yourself the time and the grace to just allow yourself to take your journey, and you'll get there.
Mhm.
We're all going to get there.
Yeah.
We don't always know how, but we do. We work it out. We work it out with the help and the community of, whether it's your family or people who you take on as your family. But, I think self-education is important. Huge part of this life is learning how to advocate strongly. And you can only do that by gathering all of the information, and you can trust other people and their expertise, but you also have to come to the table, with something as well, so that you're not just blindly believing everything that everyone tells you,
Yeah.
because it is so different for each child, right?
Absolutely.
I'm trying to tell providers, right? One, you have to stay curious about everyone you're working with, and you have to be humble to know that no matter what you know and how long you've been in it, you know nothing of what it is to be somebody else.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
You need to put your listening ears on and
Mhm.
really listen to your clients and people around you. But ultimately, it is us who needs to, make the decisions. But we're going to make better decisions if we're hearing from all different people and people we respect, people we don't respect, and everyone.
Yeah.
That's a really really good point.
It's
Um,
okay not to know everything. No one does,
right.
right? That's another
Right.
thing I tell parents, like, ask all the questions. Like,
Mhm.
keep
Yes.
asking, keep asking. And that's, you can do a certain amount of self-education. You're going to get a lot from other parents because they know
Mhm.
it, boy. But yeah, if you're at the table with a bunch of people who you're intimidated by, also lay out the questions. It's the same when you're in front of a doctor.
Mhm.
You come prepared, but you ask for help.
Yes. Absolutely.
Nicely said. Joanne, I don't know, Alma, did you have another question or can I go?
You can go. You can ask.
Think maybe if you can, I know it's hard to compress a book into a few sentences, but what should people expect when reading this book? Is this something that is a compilation of shorter essays? Is this a chronological book with the tale of raising your children? Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. So the first two sections of it are pretty much chronological, opening with Ben, moving on to Sebastian. It is also my journey of rediscovering the dance lessons. So in the beginning of the book, I separate the two. It's very specific: dance lesson, family, lesson, or, experiences. And then I integrate them as the book goes along. So it's very much a journey of, you know, linking everything in my life in order to then deal with all of the conflict that I was experiencing as a parent. And then in the last section is more showing how I very consciously use these dance lessons as I'm going through conflicts. And so that does a little bit of jumping, but still fairly chronological.
So it's a manual in a sense.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, a manual and a memoir.
Right. Hey.
The M&Ms of Joanne De Simone. I like it. Yeah, I mean, anything that we can use as tools is so beneficial. That's
Yeah,
great.
and it doesn't, I like how you brought up music earlier because for me it was dance.
Yeah.
But my goal is to tell people like just, in dance I learned that everything connects through space and time.
Mhm.
And the things that I pushed aside like dance and tried to forget about and then considered myself a failure over, right? And I realized if I can make these connections, I felt like such a tremendous success, right? That
Mhm.
was me redefining the success of it all.
Yes, yes,
And we can
exactly.
do that no matter what it is in your life, right? So I love that you had music.
Yeah, and I think that that's a great example for people who are just starting out on this journey, thinking like, as you mentioned, like, how am I going to do this? Like to know that you're going to get through it, but how on earth am I going to get through this? And we all really have to take that time to think, what has helped me get over things in the past? What has soothed me? What has made me more clear-minded when I'm dealing with conflicts or challenges? And again, for you, it was music. I mean, for you, it was dance. And that's something that really can make you feel like your own person. And I really also want to add that when, we're given a diagnosis or we're dealing with a challenging time, so many parents really do either lose themselves and become just a special needs parent, or they're afraid they're going to lose their identity. And reconnecting with something that was 100% you
Mm,
in your past life that you have brought into your present life is a form of salvation, and not just surviving but thriving. So I think this is so useful for people emotionally to know that I'm going to use the tools that have worked specifically for me in my life, but you have to take the time and the effort to really connect yourself. Maybe it's going back to your dance friends from early on, talking with them about these experiences, whatever it's going to take, but connecting to that in whatever way is possible. And we can all do that because we all have something, before the trauma, before the change, because for not everyone describes it as a trauma in the beginning, but whatever it is, your life is going to be different. And how are you going to get through these challenges that are inevitable?
absolutely. Oh, I love that. Love that. Well said.
Joanne, before we conclude the conversation, do you have anything else you would like to share with our listeners, which I'm sure would later be your readers?
Oh, I just, I guess I just want to reiterate again, right? Like I know as parents, we have this sort of, I think we always say like, oh, what haven't I done? I'm not doing enough.
Mhm.
There's so much self-doubt and so much self-blame. And I just want to keep saying, remember that you are doing the best that you can at any given time with what you have in the moment. Just, trust in that and validate your feelings and hold on to your community and cry when you need to cry and
Mhm.
like
Yeah.
find what works for you, but absolutely know you're not alone. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you
Beautiful.
so much. Thank you for writing it. Thank you for being on our podcast. And
Thank you.
yes, we are excited to get the link to your book, and we will be posting it on our various sites. And good luck. I hope that everyone reads it because it's important.
Yes.
Thank you. And thank you for all you do. You're a fantastic example of how to, create communities and support families.
Thank you. Thank you so much. All right. Have a great day.
You too.
Thank you. And if anyone has questions for Alma and myself, or of course to Joanne De Simone regarding her book or just in general, please feel free to write to us at info@2momsnofluff and join one of our support groups online or in person. Joanne, thank you again for your time and thank you for writing this book. Looking forward to reading it as well. Thank you.
For more information, please go to www.twomomsnofluff.com. Thank you.
If you like this podcast, please subscribe and give it a 5-star rating so more people can hear it. Thank you.